Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. This is an educational channel, and we check into great theories, discoveries, and concepts that you could really benefit from with your spiritual, mental, and physical health improvement. But you probably aren't aware of them because they've been suppressed. These are things that the powers that be don't want you to know about. And this is a segment that is called Your Blind Side. And this is really targeted to the patriot truthers out there that have done a bang up job on the digging for the political in the 20th and 21st century. But as of yet, they have not really had the time to do any deeper digging, to go further and further back. And as we go further back, things get more vague and uh, less uh, um, less urgent. I'd say people haven't really bothered to dig in. It's not like it becomes vague because it's more difficult to get at the information. People it becomes more vague because just fewer people have done it, and fewer people care about it because they don't think that they should care, because we've got this info war right in front of us, and that's exigent. It's something that takes up people's time and space. But unfortunately, um, we should learn our lesson because the lesson that we are learning is that, wow, everything is a psyop. Everything is manipulation. Everything is propaganda. All of this stuff, all of these are false flags. None of this really happened the way that we thought it did. Everything I learned when I was growing up turned out to be false or misleading. Well, but at the same time, then we say, well, I stand on the bedrock of Christian values, or I stand on the bedrock uh, of this democratic republic. I stand on the bedrock of, what I, uh, my, the dietary, beliefs of my parents and our culture, or, these are also going to fall apart once they're given any scrutiny. I'm not saying that the Christian values are bad. I'm not saying that Republican values are bad. Quite the opposite. I'm just saying that they have been infected with various aspects of propaganda and um, psychological operations. And so as a result, it doesn't mean that they're bad. In general, it means that they are a limited hangout. You can't um, convince somebody with a psyop by just putting all bad out there. You have to put 80, 90% good to mix in with the 10% or 20% bad that is, but the 10 or 20% bad is the strategic part, the part that you really need to get across, the part that you really need to manipulate people with is that 10 or 20%. But you've got to make it look good. And so these things all look good when you just look at them on a superficial level and you don't dig into them. But then when you dig into them, they kind of evaporate. Um, and so, um, that's kind of where I'm coming from here. Uh, I swear I had something specific that I was going to talk about when I started talking, um, and it's kind of escaping me right now. But that probably won't stop me from talking in general. But I guess what I'm saying is that once you do the deep digging, it becomes very problematic because um, you find out that um, I guess this guy Roman Piso calls it the new classical scholarship, and I have great problems with this person, his political orientation, and his. I feel like he is I usually classify there being five Western religions: Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Satanism, and Scientism, otherwise known as atheism or communism. And I feel like this guy has really kind of figured it out in terms of the Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, but he's completely bought into the scientism thing. He completely bought in. Like when he writes, he capitalizes evolution and he capitalizes climate change. When he writes, I'm surprised. I wonder if he capitalizes vaccines also. But uh, anyway, um, his thing is called the New Classical Scholarship, and it starts with a very basic premise that is devastating, which is that all ancient writing is propaganda. Uh, for example, the Romans had this giant empire. They had full control of censorship, publishing, and distribution in the empire. There's no printing press. Nobody's printing anything unless it agrees with what the Romans want to have put out there. And in fact, it probably doesn't get out there unless the Romans do it themselves. And he, along with one of his colleagues, Abelard Reuchlin, they they've really deconstructed a lot of this old scholarship, ancient scholarship, um, by using detective methods of going into the letters, private and public letters that many of these Roman intellectuals have written amongst each other. Letters by Pliny the Younger, um, by Tacitus, Emperor Trajan, and other Roman intellectuals, and they would write to each other about different events that were transpiring. I think Pliny has like a couple full books of letters, and which he calls epistles. And by trying to piece together who was where at what time, and they've really uncovered that each one of these intellectuals has written under a number of pseudonyms. And so all of this kind of wide-ranging literature written by the Romans, these different people, it was actually all written by a very small number of people that went by a large number of pseudonyms. And so um, none of the ancient writing that you're really reading is legitimate. And so, I come out and I talk about how the New Testament was written by the Romans, and that can be demonstrated especially by looking at the work of Josephus, his War of the Jews. But it also means that so that's a heavy blow against Christianity and religion in general. But um, it's just as heavy of a blow against all history, uh, ancient Western history, because Josephus is kind of like a keystone figure for Western history. Ancient historians almost they have to rely on Josephus's writing um, in their scholarship. Almost all ancient historians cite Josephus at one point or another, whether they're citing his War of the Jews or his 20-volume Jewish Antiquities. Um, he is the go to guy for ancient history as far as, you know, um, a fact here, a fact there, because his stuff is so wide ranging. But when you recognize that it's Roman propaganda, it fought, the whole edifice falls apart. And so we have to regroup and really try to figure out how are we supposed to be proceeding here, because none of the things that we're reading about ancient history um, can be trusted. And then when you uh, go further uh, toward the present day, it doesn't really get much better when you recognize that the so many of the writers of literature somehow, I think because they were connected with the elites, and a lot of these Romans passed uh, these things down amongst themselves, because they wrote in a code so that other Roman intellectuals, other, elites could understand who was writing it, and what the nature of the op was, but the average person couldn't figure it out. And so I think a lot of these people who've written literature over the years, since 1600 or 16th century, they um, kind of had that passed down in their family, that okay, the Romans are the true authors of the New Testament, and so on and so forth. And there were some of them that tried to communicate that to the people using more coded language. Or maybe they just communicated it as a kind of a mockery, like, yeah, we did this, my ancestors did this, but you don't know about it, and I'm going to put it right in front of your face, and you're still not going to know about it. Um, but all of these authors, starting with Christopher Marlowe and William Shakespeare, they all of Shakespeare's plays are about the fact that the Romans wrote the New Testament. And they are really a counterattack against that, trying to, because the Romans wrote the New Testament as basically an attack against the Jews, a psychological operation against the Jews, who they had just gotten done fighting a war against. And so um, this the corpus of William Shakespeare is a counterattack by a Jew, because William Shakespeare was a Jew woman named Amelia Bassano. This is all according to Joseph Atwill in his book Shakespeare's Secret Messiah. But he goes over the plays. And I've been reading over Titus Andronicus, which is already, you're using the name Titus. This is one of his first plays, or her first plays. It's pure carnage. It's pure, you know, it's it's like decapitations, people's hands getting chopped off, cannibalism. It's the same story as written in War of the Jews about the war there, the siege of Jerusalem. But in this case, it's the Romans that are being besieged, and the instead of the Jews being besieged. So that's what it all is. It's a turnabout. But it's not just Shakespeare and Marlowe. It's uh, Cervantes, and it's Shelley, and it's um, Tolstoy, and it's Tolkien, and it's C.S. Lewis. These are people who masquerade as being Christians, but they really know what the score was. And so we have to reevaluate how we're reading these people. And when I was in eighth grade, I actually took a class, a year-long class that was just called Tolkien. That's all we did for the whole year is we read Tolkien. Um, but that was in eighth grade. So it's been a while since I've taken a look at the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit and stuff. But I intend to someday revisit these books with this new approach, because I think that that's going to be what's needed. And so this is just another warning to your blind side, because I hear commentators talking in extolling terms about these artists, these writers, as that they are you know um, brilliant in a certain way, or whatever they're doing. Um, you perhaps need to take a look at what they've written um, in a new light. That it may be straight propaganda, or it could be a reveal. Um, in some cases, it could be that the person is trying to spit it out, but is afraid to, because of um, you know their persecution, or it could be that they're just trying to put it in your face and mock you with it. So um, but regardless, it's something that we need to pay attention to, and it's something that we need to look into more. And I intend to do that, and I will report back. Um, and so just keep me in mind, like, share, subscribe, and comment, and contribute. And, you know, I'm, uh, I'm trying to protect your blind side and mine too. So just remember, come back tomorrow and watch your blind side.